Have you ever wondered why the love you search for never feels like the movies promised? Why no matter how much effort you give, the bond eventually cracks, fades, or transforms into something unrecognizable? You scroll through endless feeds of smiling couples, engagement announcements, curated vacations, and yet behind closed doors, the reality is far more fragile. Divorce rates climb every year. Dating apps are flooded with users swiping endlessly, never satisfied. Studies show that most relationships end within the first 2 years, not because of dramatic betrayal, but because desire itself fades. This is not a coincidence. It is a pattern. Schopenhauer saw it long before modern data confirmed it. He argued that what we call love is not designed for happiness or permanence, but for something far more impersonal, the continuation of the species. Look closely at today's world, and his point becomes undeniable. Attraction is often explained as chemistry, but in truth, it is biology calculating silently in the background. Women, like men, are driven by unconscious forces. Preferences for height, strength, resources, confidence. All these are less about romance and more about survival and reproduction. The evidence is everywhere. Women gravitate toward men who signal stability or strength, not because of fairy tale love, but because biology selects for the future of their children. And yet, men continue to believe in a deeper, unconditional love, as if loyalty could survive outside of nature's demands. But reality proves otherwise. The moment attraction wanes, the illusion cracks. Relationships dissolve, commitments are broken, and the very people who once promised eternity walk away without looking back. The conclusion is harsh, but unavoidable. Women, like men, do not love you for who you are in essence. They love only what you can provide in the language of biology, and once that is gone, so is the love. What if the love story you were told since childhood was never real? What if the promise of unconditional devotion, the idea that someone will love you for who you are, is nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion? Look around in today's world, and you will see the evidence everywhere. The majority of relationships collapse within a few short years. Breakups happen quietly, sometimes without warning, and even marriages, supposedly the most secure form of commitment, end in divorce at staggering rates. The numbers don't lie. Love, as it is sold to us, doesn't last. In modern culture, romance has become both a product and a performance. Couples showcase their relationships online like trophies, broadcasting curated happiness while hiding the cracks that grow underneath. Dating apps have turned connection into a marketplace where endless swipes create an illusion of abundance and constant replacement. What once was sacred has now been reduced to options. A woman can end a relationship today and be on another date tomorrow night. This reality exposes the fragile foundation of modern romance. It thrives not on permanence, but on novelty. For men, this truth can be disorienting, but also liberating. Because once you realize that love is not a timeless bond, but a temporary arrangement, you stop expecting permanence where it doesn't exist. The advantage belongs to the man who sees clearly. He understands that affection is not unconditional, that it is tied to circumstances, status, strength, security, opportunity. And when those conditions change, so does the intensity of love. The cruel truth is this: women will not love you for the essence of who you are. They love through the lens of what you provide in the moment. And when that utility fades, so too does their devotion. In today's world, this is not betrayal. It is simply reality. Every time you hear someone say, "Follow your heart," what they really mean is follow your instincts. But instincts are not designed to make you happy. They are designed to keep the human race alive. That is the brutal mechanism underneath all romance. What looks like deep passion, what feels like destiny, is in truth nature pulling the strings, making sure the cycle of life continues. In the modern world, this has become clearer than ever. Look at dating behavior today. Women, even when they don't consciously admit it, select partners based on signals of survival. They are drawn to men who display strength, ambition, resources, and confidence. It is not about poetry, it is about security. Men who stand out in these areas receive more attention, more options, more loyalty, until those traits fade or are replaced by someone stronger. This isn't cynicism, it is evidence. Studies of dating apps show that a small percentage of men attract the majority of women's attention. That is not love. That is the will to life operating silently. For men who recognize this truth, the advantage is real. Because the moment you stop believing love is unconditional, you stop being blindsided when it changes. You stop asking why she lost interest, why she looked elsewhere, why her affection cooled. The answer is always the same. The instinct that drew her in is no longer satisfied. Modern society hides this fact under the language of romance, but reality exposes it every day. The endless pursuit of status, the obsession with financial stability, the craving for dominance on social media, all of it is tied to the same biological script. Men who learn this script, who accept that desire is not about who you are, but what you represent, hold the power. They cannot be deceived by illusions, because they understand the law that governs attraction itself. If you pay close attention, you'll notice that women rarely speak of love in the same way men do. Men imagine love as loyalty, devotion, a woman choosing him above all else. Women, however, experience it as selection. Their affection is a filter, a test, a way to measure which man can serve the hidden purposes of nature. It is not cruelty, it is biology. Women are nature's instrument, carrying within them the responsibility of choosing partners who can secure survival for the next generation. In today's reality, the evidence is everywhere. Ask yourself why women so often say they want a man with ambition or drive. Why height, confidence, and stability are praised more than character or kindness. Even on dating apps, where choice is abundant, the pattern never changes. A handful of men dominate attention, not because they are more virtuous, but because they embody traits that signal protection and provision. This is not about poetry or soulmates. It is the unconscious working through attraction, making sure the species continues. This explains why so many men feel betrayed when affection fades. He believed she loved him for his essence, for the man he was inside. But what she loved was what he represented in the calculus of survival. When that calculation changes, when he loses status, when another man appears stronger, when she no longer feels secure, the love she offered can shift without hesitation. For the man who refuses to see this, life is confusion and heartbreak. But for the man who accepts it, advantage lies in clarity. He stops chasing fantasies and starts navigating reality. He understands that women are not his enemies, but conduits of nature's will. And once he sees that truth, he can decide how to play the game without being destroyed by it. Passion is often mistaken for proof of love. That first rush of desire, the sleepless nights, the endless conversations that feel like destiny. Men cling to these moments as if they reveal something eternal. But passion is not built to last. It burns brightly because it is meant to fade. It is not a promise of forever, but a spark designed to ignite the bond long enough for nature to achieve its purpose. Look at the way relationships play out today. The honeymoon phase is intoxicating, filled with intensity and urgency. Couples talk as if they have found their other half, but within months or years, the fire cools. Reality sets in. Responsibilities, routine, and boredom begin to replace the rush. Studies in psychology confirm this pattern. Passion peaks early, then naturally declines, replaced by either companionship or collapse. What men mistake for love is often nothing more than a temporary hormonal surge. Modern dating culture exposes this truth daily. Women who seemed deeply invested can turn cold overnight. The same woman who once stayed up all night texting can now ignore messages for hours. This shift leaves men confused, asking what went wrong. But nothing went wrong. The mirage has simply dissolved. Passion has served its purpose, and now the deeper calculation begins. The advantage belongs to the man who doesn't confuse passion for permanence. He understands that those moments of ecstasy are not proof of loyalty, but evidence of biology doing its work. Instead of building his identity around fleeting emotions, he remains steady while others lose themselves in illusions. And because he does not depend on passion to validate his worth, he becomes the one least shaken when it fades. In a world where men chase fire that cannot last, the man who sees the mirage for what it is stands unbroken. Every man has lived it. One day, she is overflowing with affection, calling you her world, speaking about futures and promises. Weeks later, her tone changes. She becomes distant, distracted, and the warmth that once felt endless now feels like a performance. Men interpret this as betrayal, as if she has suddenly chosen to hurt him. But in reality, it is not betrayal at all. It is biology adjusting its course. In today's reality, this shift is magnified by endless access to options. Social media, dating apps, and constant exposure to alternatives keep women in a state of evaluation. The man she once adored might suddenly seem less appealing when compared to the images of men who display more success, more attention, or more strength. Studies confirm that attraction is fluid, influenced by changing circumstances rather than static loyalty. What feels like instability is simply the unconscious at work, recalculating where value lies. This is why men often feel confused. He remembers how genuine her affection seemed, how convincing her words were. But affection is genuine in the moment. It simply isn't designed to remain forever. Her shift is not always conscious. It is instinct recognizing new variables. A promotion lost, confidence shaken, another man entering her orbit. Each factor quietly tilts the scale. For men who expect permanence, this truth is devastating. But for men who understand, it becomes an advantage. They no longer waste energy clinging to the past version of her devotion. Instead, they anticipate change as part of the design. They stop asking, "Why did she change?" and start asking, "What shifted in the calculation?" In that awareness, power is reclaimed. The man who accepts her nature cannot be destroyed by it. Instead, he adapts, while others remain trapped in illusions of forever. Marriage has always been sold as the highest proof of love, the moment when two people seal their devotion forever. Yet if you strip away the ceremonies, the vows, and the photos, what remains is not a sacred union, but a contract. It binds two people together, not because of eternal passion, but because society and biology demand stability for raising children. And in today's world, this contract has turned into a trap, especially for men. The numbers are impossible to ignore. Divorce rates remain high across the world, with most separations initiated by women. In countries like the United States, nearly 70% of divorces are filed by wives, not husbands. This is not coincidence. It is a pattern. When attraction fades, when security is no longer felt, or when a man no longer meets the shifting standards of desire, marriage becomes disposable. What was once promised as forever collapses into legal battles, custody disputes, and financial ruin. Modern laws magnify the imbalance. In most cases, men lose more in divorce, half their assets, years of income through alimony or child support, and often limited access to their own children. The very institution that was supposed to protect love becomes a weapon against the man who believed in it. Meanwhile, society still pressures men to step into marriage as proof of maturity, even as the risks are clearly stacked against them. But here lies the advantage: awareness. The man who sees marriage not through romantic illusions, but through reality, cannot be trapped. He understands that what is being offered is not unconditional love, but a contract tied to shifting instincts and laws. By stepping outside of the illusion, he protects himself from devastation, while others blindly walk into it. The trap only works on those who refuse to see it. From childhood, men are raised on stories that glorify eternal love. Fairy tales show the prince and princess living happily ever after. Movies portray couples overcoming every obstacle, ending in lifelong devotion. Music, novels, and social media recycle the same promise that love, once found, will last forever. But reality shatters this narrative the moment you look beyond the screen. The images we consume are not truth. They are illusions crafted to sell hope. In today's world, these illusions are more powerful than ever. Instagram feeds are filled with curated couples showing vacations, dinners, and anniversaries, creating the impression of unshakable happiness. Yet research shows that many of these relationships are unstable behind closed doors. Studies reveal that couples who post excessively about their bond online are often compensating for hidden fractures. The image of eternal love is maintained for the audience, not for the reality of the relationship itself. Meanwhile, industries profit from this deception. Dating apps, wedding businesses, and entertainment thrive on the belief that love can last forever if you just choose the right person. Men, in particular, absorb this idea deeply, believing that if they work hard enough, provide enough, and love deeply enough, they will secure devotion that never fades. But this belief collides with reality when affection cools, when attention shifts, or when separation arrives without warning. The advantage belongs to the man who stops consuming illusions as truth. He recognizes that eternal love is a cultural product, not a natural law. Instead of tying his worth to a fantasy, he measures relationships for what they are: temporary alliances shaped by biology, circumstance, and timing. While others are destroyed by disappointment, he is never surprised, because he knows the difference between the dream that is sold and the reality that always reveals itself. One of the greatest mistakes men make is believing that emotional investment will guarantee loyalty. They pour themselves into relationships, sacrificing time, energy, and ambition, hoping that such devotion will be repaid. But the truth is that overinvestment often creates the opposite effect. When a man clings too tightly, when he makes a woman the center of his existence, he loses the very qualities that attracted her in the first place. Dependence suffocates desire, and devotion is mistaken for weakness. In modern reality, this is easy to observe. Men who orbit their girlfriends' lives, constantly seeking validation, often find themselves abandoned for men who remain less available. The ones who chase endlessly are overlooked, while the ones who move with purpose and distance maintain the upper hand. Even studies on attraction show that uncertainty fuels desire, while predictability breeds indifference. A man who is too present becomes invisible. Detachment, then, is not cruelty but strategy. It is the ability to remain centered in one's own mission rather than orbiting someone else's emotions. The detached man does not panic at silence, does not beg for reassurance, and does not crumble when affection fades. His value exists with or without her attention, and that independence makes him magnetic. He becomes the scarce resource in a world where most men give themselves away too easily. The advantage of detachment is power, not the kind that controls others, but the kind that ensures you cannot be controlled. While countless men lose themselves chasing stability in women's emotions, the detached man stands apart, untouchable. He knows that affection will rise and fall, loyalty will shift, but his foundation remains firm. And because he does not need her love to define him, he is the one who cannot be broken when it inevitably fades. If there is one force that silently drives much of female behavior, it is hypergamy, the instinct to seek the best possible partner available. This is not new, but in today's world, it has been amplified to an unprecedented level. In the past, a woman's choices were limited to her community, her workplace, or her social circle. Now, with the rise of social media and dating apps, her options extend to thousands of men across the globe. What once was a village is now the entire planet, and the competition is endless. Proof of this is everywhere. Studies on dating platforms reveal that a small percentage of men, those with wealth, status, or striking looks, receive the majority of women's attention. Average men, who in another era would have been perfectly acceptable partners, are now largely invisible. Even women already in relationships are exposed daily to potential replacements, making their loyalty conditional on whether their current partner continues to outrank the competition. This reality frustrates men who believe love should be unconditional. They imagine that affection is enough, that shared memories or loyalty will protect them. But hypergamy does not honor sentiment. It follows value. If a man loses his ambition, his confidence, or his resources, he risks losing her respect along with them. That is why so many women leave relationships once the man's trajectory declines, even if his devotion remains the same. The advantage lies in understanding. The man who sees hypergamy clearly stops expecting permanence. He does not resent it, he adapts. Instead of clinging to promises, he focuses on building himself into someone who cannot be easily replaced. While other men cry betrayal when instincts take over, he already knew the rules of the game, and in knowing, he holds the power they never will. In today's world, love is no longer built on silence, patience, or presence. It is built on attention. Every like, every comment, every view becomes a form of currency in the modern dating market. Women now measure their value not just through the devotion of one man, but through the collective validation of thousands. Social media has turned affection into an economy where the highest bidder is not always the most loyal, but the most visible. Reality shows this clearly. A woman with average looks in real life can transform into someone desired by hundreds once she uploads the right photos. Strangers flood her inbox, men compete for her time, and suddenly, her perception of options multiplies. What once might have been enough, a faithful partner, a stable life, is now overshadowed by the constant reminder that more exists just a swipe away. Attention becomes addictive, and like any addiction, it requires stronger doses to satisfy. For men, this shift is dangerous when misunderstood. The man who invests his entire being into one woman often finds himself competing with an invisible crowd of admirers he cannot control. His loyalty feels small compared to the flood of validation she receives daily. This is why so many men feel blindsided when devotion alone fails to secure commitment. But the man who recognizes the economy of attention gains an edge. He does not waste energy competing with the crowd. He understands that true leverage lies in scarcity, not abundance. His attention is valuable because it is not freely given. In a marketplace where most men hand over their focus without thought, the one who withholds, who remains selective, becomes the rare prize. And in being rare, he commands respect that blind devotion could never buy. The greatest strength a man can gain is not wealth, status, or even influence. It is the freedom that comes when he finally sees love for what it truly is. Most men walk through life shackled by illusions, believing that if they just try hard enough, give enough, or remain loyal enough, they will secure a woman's eternal devotion. But the world provides proof again and again that this devotion does not exist in the way men imagine. Relationships end, vows are broken, and affection fades. What destroys men is not the loss itself, but the false belief that it was supposed to last forever. In today's reality, you can see this everywhere. Men devastated after breakups, unable to function, because their entire sense of worth was tied to one woman. Some spiral into debt trying to win her back. Others collapse emotionally when faced with the fact that the promises she made were temporary. Meanwhile, the man who understands her nature accepts the ending without losing himself. He doesn't deny that emotions were real in the moment, but he also doesn't confuse them with permanence. This realization creates freedom. When a man no longer expects a woman to love him unconditionally, he stops bending his life to meet impossible standards. He invests in himself first, his health, his craft, his purpose. Knowing these cannot be taken from him. Relationships may come and go, but his foundation remains untouchable. The true advantage lies here. Detachment from illusion is not bitterness, but liberation. The man who sees clearly is no longer manipulated by promises or destroyed by departures. He engages with women on his own terms, aware of the rules that govern attraction. And because nothing can be taken from him that defines his worth, he walks with a freedom most men will never know.